guys, welcome to the stream. My name's Tom. If you haven't checked this out before, I do audio post-production tutorials, mostly in Pro Tools. I just recently started doing them in DaVinci Resolve and Fairlight. Today we are going to be talking about the top member and just subscriber and viewer questions that I get on my channel. My channel's still pretty small, but it has a lot of engagement. So it's I try to respond to the comments on the actual videos, but you know, it's just worth doing an actual video on the questions because there's kind of some common threads that go through, and I figured, you know, why not dive into some more details on these versus just, you know, a 10 to 20 word response on YouTube. So I do have a, let me go to my screen share here. I've been kind of going through the comments this morning to collect some ideas. So we're going to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably like 10 or so questions. I also have on the members only Discord, I shared a link for having guests. So we'll be using Video Ninja for that if anybody wants to join. If none of the members show up, then I'll just open it up to just civilians. You know, anybody who wants to come on and ask a question is totally fine. Just try to keep your language PG, and you know, don't shout out Mr. Beast or anything like that, and we'll be good. So let's look at, I guess you guys might want to see like the actual questions too, and let me put the chat up. Okay, how do I do this? We don't necessarily need to see this yet. So here's the questions and the chat. Yeah, you guys can see this. Okay, so who do we got in the chat? We got TJ, Kevin, Marvel Studios. All these star ones are members here. So Jay is actually making it to his first live stream. So thank you, Jay, for joining. Hillpost is on there. Riley, Tiziano, F.O. Harke, Sergeant Dr. Pepper. So thank you guys for dropping in. And we got Andreas. He says, Hola, desde Puerto Rico. Is it possible you can do a video on Matchbox reconforming from start to end? Really difficult to do that, and I'll tell you why. So I have two sides of my work. I've got the union dialogue editor side where I use Matchbox a lot, and then I've got the indie supervising sound editor, re-recording mixer, jack of all trades, which is a lot of people on my channel. They're just single or 3-person studios that do a lot of work in-house. So, problem with showing front-to-back Matchbox is it requires EDLs, it requires professional grade outputs from, like, usually they're cutting an Avid, and I can't show that stuff because it's all under NDA and it would tank my career, which the industry's down, so it's less of a risk now, but it's still enough of a risk that I'm not gonna chance that. And just out of respect for the people I work with, I'm not gonna show any of that stuff because it's, you know, it's all proprietary and protected. So I would have to find an indie project that can actually output good EDLs and that needs a conform, and most of them need conforms, but outputting EDLs on indie stuff, like, it's usually beyond the editor and assistant editor skill set. So yeah, I'll try to find a way to do that, but it's going to be understandably difficult. So other questions, we got Jay from Las Cruces, my old hometown. That is super cool, man. I need to get back there. Crystalline Media. Yeah, if you guys have questions, just post them in the chat too. Like, you don't have to be coming on the, you know, the actual show. Let me bring up my, I'll put this on my other window so I can just keep an eye. If anybody pops into Video Ninja, I can check it out. So first thing I want to do is on, so we have a members only Discord. So if you're a channel member, you get instant access to this, where it's like basically just an audio post forum. Always great conversation happening on here. And I decided, since the engagement is getting so hi, like I would do a member of the week. So on each stream, I will shout out the member and we'll talk about why they're the member of the week. So the member of the week for last week is Sean C. Sean has been answering questions like a madman. He's also been doing like insider info from, I think, NAB and other conferences, and just being a next level contributor on Discord. Really somebody who knows their stuff and is not shy about helping people out. So Sean C., you're the member of the week. Member of the week, what is that about? Well, it's basically just an internet trophy, but you also, when you have time, I know you're working, but we can set up a Zoom or a phone call and actually talk, you know, any questions you have or stuff you want to talk about. Like, it could even be just talking about smoking pulled pork or going fishing, like whatever you want, just as a way to, you know, say thank you and really keeping the Discord, you know, alive and active, and I really appreciate it. So thank you to Sean C. and congratulations. So, okay, first question. Let me just look at the chat real quick and see what we've got. Riley says, how's work lately? Have you been busy? Any union gigs? I just finished up a TV show, which is probably going to be my last union show for a while. And it was just enough to get my hours for the MPIP, PHP, healthcare and that stuff. So I don't have to work again for a while. And I've got money saved up. So and then the YouTube stuff like is kind of bridging the gap a little bit. But basically, I'm going to be down for a little bit. I've got a doc project that I'm finishing and another doc that I'm doing sound design for. So there's a little bit of work out there, but like it's really dead. And everybody I've talked to is looking for work. So it's just a down period for the industry. And I'm thankful to have you guys because it gives me something to kind of keep my head out of the mud, and just like a weekly thing that I do. So I will continue to do live streams and edited videos on my channel, live streams Tuesday mornings, and then Thursday I do like a pre-recorded edited video. So I'm going to keep that going, and I've got some indie stuff, but yeah, work is super slow. I'm kind of enjoying it because I can do projects around the house and everything, but there's a lot of people that are hurting, so yeah, it's a difficult time for most people in the entertainment industry. Okay. Other questions in the chat. If a scene shot with no audio will have backgrounds, is it worth adding fill to remove the quietness? Yes. As somebody who also has the skills in music production, how would you compare the film post industry to music recording mixing work from a financial fulfillment perspective? Well, until the past couple years, audio post has been a much easier niche to make money in for me than music. Everybody on the planet seems to have some skills with a DAW and a way to produce and record themselves. So that work over the past 20 years has really, it's kind of stratified into the home studio stuff with the big expensive studios taking, you know, label work, and then you have these smaller independent studios that are just scraping by recording, you know, SoundCloud rappers for 30 bucks an hour. So it was a good time to be an audio post up until 2023 or 22, with all the streaming work out there. You know, I would still say the audio post is the better lane to pick, just because for a while there's going to be more work, although like I said at the top, that is kind of drying up. The actual fulfillment of it, I can't, like, that's so personal, you know, like me, I was kind of fulfilled doing music, but I was also frustrated because getting paid to work on your own music is very rare. It's usually collaborating with people, either producing or recording or mixing. So for me, the best marriage of those two has been scoring films, and I've gotten to score probably 4 or 5 features in the past couple years, and then some short projects and commercials, so, and TV shows. And that stuff is cool because you get the visual aspect of it, but you also get the, well, I can just bring whatever musical skills I want to this. You know, I was using analog synths and electric guitars and real drums, and it was just a cool way to combine the two. So great question. Crystalline says, I'd like to know how you treat reverbs. For example, music playing in a car. In a car, I don't use reverb at all. I use comb filtering and phase cancellation for music playing in a car. Or sometimes sometimes it just needs to play full. Playing in a club, sure, add reverb. Transitions, when someone's walking into a club, you can automate the parameters on the reverb, or you can use different reverbs and use the sends to automate not only the dry-wet mix, but also transition between the reverbs. So yeah, reverbs are really fun. Where can members find a link to Discord chat? It should be right when you join. There should be an invite sent out. So go to the community tab, I think, and there should be a post for you. But if you can't find it, let me know. Greg Palmer, possible discussion topic, matching ADR. That's a good one. I'll put that on here. That's tough. That's a good, great, thank you for reminding me of that one. Noticed production side is down too. Yeah, I'm fortunate to have a gig in June and we'll be on location the whole month. Awesome. Yeah, that's a nice thing about production jobs is like you work a month and it pays your bills for 3. I've also had a hard time accessing the Discord channel. Okay, let me paste a link. I'm not sure how that'll work if I paste a link to the chat. I think that would open it up to everybody. So I'll do another post in the, yeah, let me do that. I'll post a comment right now for like let's see, invite people, set link to never expire. So I'm gonna go to the community tab and do a post for members right now so you can check that out, and it should give you, let me post for members, Discord link, post. Okay, members only, posted the Discord link, check the, I think it's community or post tab on my YouTube channel, and you should have that right now. So if there's any other problems, just pop in the chat and let me know. Okay, so curious, what do you think about Reaper? I think I've used Reaper before. It seems pretty good. It is not super popular in the professional side of things, but for somebody just doing something themselves, use whatever DAW you want. It doesn't matter. Like the work matters. The software does not matter that much. So, you know, just do whatever you want. Use whatever. Reaper is very powerful. I like that you can customize it, and like, I think it's open source. So that is really cool. Let me make this bigger. Probably can't super read that on the stream. Can I make this, can I make the text bigger? Ooh, I can zoom in like an old person. That's awesome. Okay, so Elan or Ellen, that looks like German maybe. Hey Thomas, good morning. What are alternative plugins to quickly make good fill? Great question, super awesome question. I will show this to you. I really like Absentia DX, and they recently released a new version, so I need to get on it and like check it out. But Absentia DX, you just go to Airtone Generator and do Airtone. Airtone and PFX I don't use too much. And this really will, the success of this module on Absentia DX greatly depends on the material you feed it. So if you're feeding it stuff that's wall-to-wall dialogue, it's going to not give you great airtone. It's going to have too much high frequency. You'll have to EQ it or do other things to get it to match. If you feed it little gaps or a longer section, like a 10-second section with dialogue and a little bit of room tone, like 10 frames here, a second there, it does a really great job. Better than the Isotope ambience, whatever it's called, ambience match. And also, I've found it to be a little better than the Audio Kids Undertone and Undertone 2 and Undertone Light. It does take longer, so that's the downside. You have to be patient, but it tends to give you a good match. And sometimes it doesn't, and you just EQ it or spectral out the stuff that it adds in that shouldn't be there, and you get nice flat fill. And I use this every dialogue edit I do to make things buttery smooth, and it's a great tool for that. So excellent question. Okay, where am I at? Okay, and what is your best practice to tackle clicks or pops that are in the frequency range of the voice using isotope? Another great question. Two questions, two excellent questions from one person. Okay, so go to RX Connect. I mean, that's fine. So I'll just send something there. Let me grab the raw stuff. Actually, I don't need to drag it up. I can just leave it there. Send it. Okay, so clicks that are in the range of, I mean, most clicks are in the range of the human voice. They might be just in the high frequencies, but the method I found works best for removing clicks is use the declick module, and I always talk up using keyboard shortcuts. So in here, you go to keyboard and your preferences and isotope, and you can do presets, or I should probably put my keyboard preset on my site. That would be really good. I've got a bunch of module chains and stuff on my site to get you started, but I don't think I have the keyboard shortcuts. Anyways, you just search for declick, and bam. You can see I have that set to 1. I use declick more than probably any other module, so I have it set to number 1. And then what you do is, so feathering should be off. The worst thing to do is do this and declick. Never do that. That's going to give you mush mouth, terrible, robotic, watery dialogue. So just highlight the click and take it out like that. It takes forever. It takes a long time, but it's consistent. And sometimes you get these little ghost remnants. Just hit spectral repair on those, and it gets out the rest of them. So this is what I do. Sometimes you get clicks and pops down here. So what you have to do for that is in declick, turn the frequency skew to low frequency, and like here's one right here is a little thump. Just hit 1 and it takes it out. So you do have to go through and manually do that. For whatever reason, probably because the cycle of the waveform is reading as a click, it will often remove some of the subharmonics. So just be mindful of that. You can always copy and paste to fill in gaps. And that's one of the kind of unsung heroes of isotope is the spectral editing, which is where you actually do a 2D frequency selection and you can paste it in. You can do this to like remove words and do all kinds of cool stuff. So instead of just doing a time selection or a frequency selection, you know, you can do both. And you can do crazy shapes with the paintbrush. Like you could do an S and copy the S and paste the S, and then you got an S hole. So yeah, you can get very creative with that. Great question. Okay, so Bill says regarding matching ADR, I recently used wild lines from a windy set and was told they sounded like ADR. Yes, sometimes close-up audio will sound like ADR. So we can talk to that, or talk about that. Alternative to Absentia DX, for generating fill, check out Audio Kid's Undertone. Other skill sets, it could be remote and might help in just keeping the boat afloat. I have other skill sets. I've been, you know, I have some like construction skill sets. So I've done a little bit of handyman work, and I'm considering, do I get my CCB and really go hard on the trades, you know, doing like general contractor work. But I've also worked in marketing and product development, and like really the skills don't transfer great from a lot of what we do, but personnel management, project management, software deployments, keeping a schedule, like some of the accounting stuff if you run your own business, like all those can be transferred to other industries. It's just really, it's a tough sell for a lot of people. So yeah, video marketing is another one. Like if you can work a camera and you understand editing, you could probably get some work with video editing, but it's kind of tough. It's not like, you know, if you're an electrician, you could probably figure out plumbing because there's a lot of similar things with those two skills. It's kind of specialized. So if you go all in on a career in audio post, just know, try to keep some other skills going, because if work does get really slow, you will have to figure out a way to pivot. And so that's why I've kind of kept my construction skills sharp, because like that work is always going to be there. Like it dips down when the housing market's down, but like stuff breaks. People hold on to their old houses when the housing market's down, and so they get plumbing leaks, or they need an addition built, or they have a roof problem, or they need a deck built. Like all those, I say try to diversify your skill set away from entertainment, because it's going to the creator economy right now. You guys are watching a YouTube stream or replay right now. Like that's where people are going for their content. So the other thing is maybe start a YouTube channel. Find a passion that you have that you know a lot about and start a YouTube channel. It doesn't pay all the bills, but it'll pay some of them. Okay, good question. If you have to build a scene from scratch, would you tend to keep your room tone mono center? Yes, I would keep it in the mono. Greg says, I ran across an interesting plugin for matching ADR, Boom It. I haven't checked that out yet. It's kind of on my list, but I prefer just EQ and other tricks for processing ADR. Keyboard preset, request for that. I'd like to improve my dialogue edit for drama. I used to do a lot of non-drama, which means non-budget, so I checkerboard my mics by location rather than shots. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll go through that when we get to like the questions I put on here, if we get to them even. There's a ton of great questions in the chat. Have you ever found deplosive useful? Yes, deplosive is great for heartbeats and labs. It's actually good for deplosive sometimes, or just low frequency thumps. Sometimes footsteps, like if the actors are on a wood floor and it's just thumpy, like soft footsteps, or sometimes regular shoes are all like under 100 hertz. It's good for that kind of stuff. How would you go about mixing a feature film in Fairlight? I will show you in a video in a couple weeks. What's your favorite reconform method? Matchbox. I know I grow food, microgreens, greens, and people always need to eat. Yes. However, you will get into profit issues with growing food, especially microgreens, and you're not doing it at scale. Like, that's kind of, it's easy to make money, but it's not easy to make a profit. And that's true for so many different businesses. Like, you can be making 100 grand a year, but if your expenses are 80, then you're making 20 a year. Go work at Walmart instead. Okay, any tips for good Foley recordings, performances? Yeah, I mean, there's so many good Foley artists out there and good movies that really feature Foley. You know, Saving Private Ryan is one of my favorite movies. No Country for Old Men is really good. Castaway is really good. Two of those have Tom Hanks in them. There's like anything where there's not a ton of music tends to be really good for Foley. Yeah. How would you go about queuing Foley? Oh man. Queuing Foley, you basically set up a whole bunch of tracks and you do region groups. I can quickly kind of show you. Okay, sound effects. Foley. So this is a short film, so there's only 2 characters, but you can see I've got footsteps. So where you want the Foley recorded, you just do Option Command G, and you say character name, Kyle. You can do FS first if you want. FS Kyle boot grass, you know, like that. So you want to know the character's name, the type of shoe, and the surface. And some Foley mixer or recordists like to have individual tracks so that they can buzz through and do all, for example, the boot on grass. So you might have like 100 Foley cue tracks. Like this one would maybe be called footstep, Kyle, boot, grass. And you just go and cue all those regions on there. I suggest naming the region no matter what, because if they condense it down to less tracks, or they ask you to, at least the group, the region, has the name of what they need to record. So yeah, and then props would be the same, like do like a gun prop, or rifle, pistol, whatever, you know. Break it, like you can always condense tracks, but having each track for each prop and each foot, or each shoe and surface and character combo makes it to where when they record, they can just go through and do all that. You know, it's one setup, here's another setup, here's another setup. And they can record the Foley super fast if you do it that, versus having it set up like a mix where you have like character footsteps and a couple prop tracks. So don't be afraid to go wide on your Foley cueing. Good question. Okay, so now, a couple more questions. When you went to the Hollywood event, did you hear of new plugins used in the post industry that sounded interesting? I tried not to, I did nerd out a little bit with regards to firearms recording, because it's just interesting to me. Like, it's the loudest sound you have to record, and there was a couple people there who specialized in it, so we talked about like sound devices, limiters, and op amps, and all kinds of stuff. But I tried not to talk much about plugins, because it's kind of the less experienced people will end up asking about plugins, because they see plugins as problem solvers. And at a certain level, you stop really focusing on that, and you focus on the work, the actual work, you know, like the hands-on stuff, and not so much the tools. So there was a little bit of talk of that, but I'm not a plugin junkie. What's the configuration in the down mix to go from -24 to -16 in deliverable stems? So not so much a down mix, but a compression and limiting combination. I like to use a combination of a slow compressor and a limiter. The limiter, like, you know, there's two controls on a limiter. There's like the threshold and the ceiling. So you can lower the threshold and keep the ceiling high, or maybe it's the other way around. But basically, you don't want to do all compression and you don't want to do all limiting. So I like to combine both to get that 8 dB difference. Okay, good question. What do you think about Foley recording and editing as a career in the future? Great question. So I think we're going to see more production sound being used. Well, okay, so actually, hold on, let me back up. On productions where they care about the production sound and they do a good job recording production sound with good boom mics and lavs, there's going to be less Foley, because you'll be able to use more production effects, P effects. You can separate them from spoken dialogue now, which is kind of a new thing in the past 2 years. So the directors tend to not like Foley as much as the production sound. So on shows where they hire a good production recordist, good microphones, make sure to get the boom in there because they can paint it out in VFX, there's going to be less Foley recording, less Foley editing, less ADR. So those positions, I think, are going to be hurt pretty dramatically. They've already been hurt pretty dramatically because we can clean up production sound a lot better. So those are going to be more dangerous, I think, as a career path. MIDI plugins, not so much. Like, a good Foley artist, you cannot replicate with any plugin. I can't even do it. Like, I can spend all the time setting up mics and getting the props, but there's something special about how they can get into character and perform. So on high budget stuff, like, there is always going to be Foley, because it does add a depth to the mix that you can't get with anything else. So yeah, but low budget stuff, no. Can you advise any resources to learn Foley, or at least look at how other people make them? It's a kind of secret black art, and the Foley artists are very careful about sharing proprietary stuff. So really, you'd have to find somebody who does it and that's willing to talk to you about it. There's a book, I think, called The Foley Grail that you could check out. And then there's a couple of Facebook groups. So that's really it. Rodrigo says, what's your go-to reconform method? Matchbox. Okay, so I'm going to go to the questions that I didn't write them down. I typed them down. So boom and lav checkerboarding, this is a big question I've got. And I'll show you here on my dialogue tracks. How I like it checkerboarded is in shot groups. Here's our favorite short film that I made for my YouTube channel. So I like to have the boom on top, and then in this case, it's 2 character lavs underneath. So this is a shot. and this set is a shot, and this set is a shot, and this set is a shot. And by, actually these are X tracks, so those need to be inactive. So by doing that, you can then go through and look at each group of tracks as its own unique problem to solve. And it also makes editing easier because I can grab this piece of fill and use it here. And, you know, and I know like the characters on this track, he's always going to be on that track. When I'm mixing, I can do a linear, just grab that, EQ, compress, right to selection, do a faderide. I can do the same for this. I can copy and paste settings. The other way to cut it, which is all the booms on top, looks something like this, where we move all the booms up here, and then we have the character tracks down here. The downside with this is you can see, like, I might end up having this one character split across 3 tracks for different fill. Like this is all going to be Josh, and it's not super consistent because the room tone can change, or I might need to use more boom on this. So I don't like doing all the lavs on the bottom and all the booms on top. I understand the reasoning for it, and especially if you're doing dialogue reassigns where you have like, you know, this be your A and this be your B, then you can process all the lavs through a bus processor that does certain things. But I like to treat each shot as its own kind of mini scene so that I can just go through the scene and go clip by clip when I'm editing and mixing. I mix clip by clip for dialogue too. And then I'll go back through and do a global, you know, full scene pass on it and then go back and forth. So that was a question that I get asked a lot. So mix levels for web, I like to go for -16. For TV, I like to do -24. For film, I've started doing -24, but you can go lower than that if you want. Just because I don't know where the film's going. Like festivals, it might be going up against films that are mixed in like, you know, Vegas or something that are pumping out at -12. So at least if I mix them to broadcast spec, they will play well on like Amazon Prime or TV if it goes to broadcast. But film, there's no loudness spec. For dialogue, people have asked, well, how loud do you make your dialogue? I try to hit the Netflix spec of -27. And generally, if you do that, the whole mix is going to end up around -24 when you add in music and sound effects. So I think dialogue at -27 is a really good goal. Do that also when you're editing the dialogue, because then you'll hear it at close to mix level and you'll be able to hear more stuff because it's going to be louder. Like I've had to mix dialogue edits that were done in the average like -36, and if I am globally cranking everything up 10 dB just to get it in the pocket, I'm going to start hearing more ticks, you know, tone shifts and all that stuff. So always try to get your dialogue to at least -27. If you're just doing web stuff, that's going to have to be, you know, -18 or so. Question on upmixing. How do you upmix? What plugins do you like for upmixing? If you have music stems, you don't need to upmix. You can pan them individually, which is really nice. Like you can see this stem here, I've got it pulled back into the room a little bit. If you're doing Atmos, you can add that to an object or height channels. If you just have a stereo mix to work with, you know, like Q1 or Q1A or whatever, and it's just stereo, you could just bring it back into the room, or you can go to an upmixer. I really like the New Gen Halo upmix, so that's what I use. It goes from stereo to 5.1 or stereo all the way up to 7.1.4, so that's what I use for upmixing. I'm going to go through like 2 more and then I'll go back to the comments because I know there's probably a couple more. Matching ADR, really important to just do ear training on that and do EQ. Here's some ADR right here. You can see there's no real shortcut for this, but generally, like ADR tends to be recorded too close. Like that's a big issue. So you have proximity effect you're dealing with. Also, the preamps used, you know, they're not using sound devices or Zaxcom in an ADR studio. They're going to be using a Millennia pre or something else. So you kind of have to account for a little bit of that. Like the Sound Devices preamps have their own tonality. The other thing is you might get actors recording ADR in a music studio, which is what happened here, with a large diaphragm condenser. So I have to match that to a Sennheiser MKH60, which is also mixed with a a lav mic. So it's just ear training. Generally you're cutting high and low, and you might be boosting some mids a little bit. You might have to cut a little bit up here to get the crunchiness out. And then I really like a high shelf down paired with a low pass filter. That gives you a lot of flexibility with the low end, and then similar on, or with the high end, and then similar on the low end, a high pass filter, like a very gentle slope, and then a low shelf, and I can really dial in the low frequency response. The other thing you'll run into with ADR is having to add a mono reverb. If it's outside, don't add a reverb. It's going to make it stick out really bad. But you'll get into the habit of matching reverbs, and I have 4 mono reverbs set up in my template. You can get this template on my website if you don't have one, but set it up yourself with like a slap, a short reverb, a medium reverb, and a long reverb. And those 4 are going to get you really close in the majority of situations. You can see I'm just using Revibe too. I'm not using, what's it called? Outdoor or Altiverb or any fancy, no cinematic rooms or Valhalla reverb or any of that stuff. It's just literally stock Pro Tools reverb, and it works great. You do need to use more early reflections. So crank that level up, make sure the tail is tucked in, and generally shorter times with more early reflections will match production better than the opposite. So, take this time down to, like you can see on the short, it's 400 milliseconds. There's really not much there. And then EQing your reverb, super important. You can do the Abbey Road trick where you really band limit it to just the mids, and that can help bed things in a lot better. Like this kind of shape, where you're cutting at like, 3 or 4K with a 6 dB per octave slope, and the same with the low frequencies. This doesn't sound like a telephone filter on reverb. This just sounds like natural reverb. Sometimes you do get reverb with a lot of low ends, so you have to open this up. But so that was a lot. That was a mouthful of text. Let me break here and go back to the chat, because I'm sure there's more. Okay. Any advice on how to gain stage quickly? Great question. So for dialogue editing and sound effects editing, you start on the clips. You start on the clips themselves. You can see I've gained this boom up 22 dB. Don't be afraid to go ham on the clip gain, because that's going to make your plugins in the chain work a lot less. And it's also going to make this part, the fader writing part, way easier, because you're not going to be having to max out your fader at plus 12 for stuff. You can just do a little ride here and there. I don't tend to do this kind of clip gaining where I'm like doing individual syllables. Some mixers like this. The reason I don't, and I try not to do this for the shows that I cut for other mixers, is, yeah, you get the signal even, but the noise floor is not even. The noise floor is going to be very jumpy if you do that. And I want a consistent noise floor with my edits. You do have to be mindful of, like, not like doing too little clip gaining. Obviously, if they yell or there's a whispered thing, I'll bring that up. But in those cases, split it off to an adjacent track so that the mixer can, treat it a little bit differently. So good question. I'm seeing more use of AI trained on the actor for VO or ADR. Yep, me too. Is there a way to separate PFX from dialogue faster than manually? You can. I haven't really done this much, but in Absentia DX it does have an air tone in PFX. I've heard some mixers use that, but I haven't. So, I mean, I've tried it, but it didn't do as good of a job as I can do by hand. If you're going for fast, try this. If you're going for good, you got to do it by hand. That's the rule with most things. Can we see how you use it? Okay, I tried to show you. If you're talking about gain staging, I did that. Okay, good. How can music composers, score mixers turn over stems to audio posts if they're not using Pro Tools? Well, a lot of music composers and score mixers do not use Pro Tools. A lot of them are in Logic or Cubase, or a digital performer, a GarageBand, they might be using a 24 track, you know, tape deck, like it could be anything. So all they have to do is print down their stems. And if they are using auxes, it's super easy for them because they just print the auxes and then you get their stems. You will run into some composers saying, well, I did that, but it doesn't have the 10 different mastering plugins on my master bus, so it's going to sound different. Those people they're not really working as professional composers at that point, because a professional composer knows that their stems need to equal their mix. So they'll do processing on the stem auxes or buses versus a mastering chain on their master output. Okay, what version of Pro Tools do you use? Oh, let me check. I am usually a couple versions back. I'm on 24.10.1, so I think I'm the same as you. And I tend to just like keep whatever is stable and then upgrade when I have downtime. Yeah, that's funny. Any conventions on dialogue compression? Yes. Well, conventions, it's going to vary based on the mixer. I like to do a combination of track compressors, which I normally have bypassed. This is FabFilter Pro C. And then a bus compressor on my dialogue aux. I like to do slow attack and release. There was a really cool article, actually it was a study done on compression times, finding that faster attacks tended to lower the intelligibility of dialogue. So I will generally start around 10 milliseconds and either auto release or like somewhere around 150 to 200. I just want this tickling a little bit on loud stuff. What I'll do if something needs to not be dynamic, an action scene in an action movie or a TV show or a web series, then I will turn on the track compressors. So I end up getting double compression with the track compressors and the bus compressor, and that makes everything fat. It does bring up the noise floor quite a bit, so you have to be careful. You might have to use a little bit more noise reduction, but that's what I tend to do. And you'll find 100 different ways from 100 different people on how to compress dialogue. So good question. Sorry, there's not like a, here's the settings to definitely use. It also depends on language. Like some languages are fast, percussive. German, Spanish, some of the guttural language, Slavic languages, they depend on fast consonants. So it's going to vary based on all kinds of things. Zakar says, I've heard that if we download film and 5.1 audio in separate channels, we can kind of separate dialogue, music, and Foley from each other. Is it true? So music and backgrounds are going to be in the all the channels probably. Sometimes music is not in the center channel. So in that sense, you can take the center channel and get dialogue and Foley, but you can't separate the Foley from the dialogue because that's normally mono. And then the music would be the surrounds. Okay, I wanted to see how to use New Gen Audio Halo Upmix, and that's for gain staging. If you put a clip into smaller clips, if you cut a clip into smaller clips and gain stage. Okay, so yeah, keep the noise floor consistent when you're clip gaining. For Halo, for New Gen Halo, I'll show you that real quick. Okay, so here, sound field, New Gen Halo, let's go stereo to 5.1, that's fine. Okay, so I think, did I save my preset? No. I like to have some center channel. I will generally turn the LFE off, and then I just adjust the rear fade to be where it sounds right. And then I like to do the exact down mix. So those are the settings I use. Now I'm going to take it back off because I really like just using stereo stems and panning them. You get a better discrete mix if you do that. Have I ever used heat on mix? I haven't yet. Not a audio post mix. About background music, how to transition from music to music without harsh cuts or fades. Oh, music editing. Okay. So that's a whole thing. For music editing, understanding song arrangement and layout, like intro, A, B, C, outro, bridge, you know, if it's got vocals, chorus and verse and stuff like that. And basically what I like to do for music editing is figure out the editor's intent with how it's working with the scene, and then, okay, I see where they laid stuff out. Now, how do I make that work musically? Because a lot of the times it doesn't. So you have to balance between the editor/director's intent and what actually makes sense from a musician standpoint. And the director and editor is always going to trump the musicality of it. But the best thing to do is just start cutting sections, and start by cutting the end of the cue and moving it back so that you get a real ending. And sometimes you have to move the ending earlier so that there's a breath between cues. You can't just fade from music to music. Like, that doesn't work. So you need a palette cleanse between cues. So taking the ending of one cue and moving it back like a second or two so you get that last note, and then you go into the next cue. That works really well. If you have to slam from music to music, try to, you can time compress or expand the existing cue to where the beat lands. If the beat lands on the transition, that's usually good. And sometimes it's got to be a hard cut, like no fade out, just bam, and you're into the next cue. So, okay, good question. I never understood why we have to use the boom mic. You don't, and if you have lazy production sound mixers and boom ops who are just not getting a good boom track, then yeah, use the lavs. But that is a fault of the production and a fault of the production sound team. So there's always a way to get a good usable boom track on set. And if they're unwilling to put in that minimum effort of getting a good boom track, then yeah, use the lavs. But it always sounds better, even a mediocre boom track with lavs sounds better to me than just lavs. The lavs are too close. There's proximity effect, there's clothing noise, you get no sense of the environment or the production effects of the actors. They sound tight and claustrophobic to me. So that's why I like to use the boom mic, because the boom mic, if there's a minimum effort made to get the boom close, in the ballpark of the set, it's going to pick up everything. And I like to have everything. I like to have a rich dialogue track. I don't want it to sound like they're disconnected heads talking on screen. So that's why. I'm not going to do any April Fool's stuff. I feel like that stuff's pretty played out. So I thought about it, like I could say, well, I'm hanging up the faders, guys. But nah, leave that for other people. Yes, Kevin's right. My order of use on set is boom, under boom, plant mic, and lavs. And I love how DPs on set, that's their first reaction to any boom placement issue, like shadow or, you know, I can't get the boom in close enough. Well, just go from underneath. It doesn't sound good at all. It really doesn't. It sounds so bad. Sometimes you have to, like a walk and talk, if they're walking on gravel, the shotgun mic will cancel out some of the gravel footsteps, but it still doesn't sound good to underboom. So, and the thing is with VFX, paint the boom out. You guys are painting out logos on stuff. You're painting out, you know, like all kinds of, you're beautifying actors and actresses after the shoot to take away wrinkles and forehead lines. Like, just paint the boom out. Okay, Paul Cruz says, who gets more roles, post-production mixers or a music mixer? I would say a music mixer every time. Yeah, post-production mixers they are a curmudgeonly bunch. They are not getting the girls. I mean, they might be married. More likely they're divorced. But music mixers, definitely, yeah. They get artists coming in. They get, you know, they got alcohol and drugs in their studios. Like that, of course. Maybe not the best girls, but they're going to get more. Okay, so back to the list here. I've still got about 10 minutes before I got to jump off. Noise reduction plugins. I get always asked about noise reduction plugins and when to use noise reduction. I'll combine these two. So I like the Acon Dialogue, what is it called? Let me look here. You can see I have quite a few noise reduction plugins. Acon Digital Extract Dialogue is really good. If you got the money, Cedar DNS1 is still the most transparent all-around broadband noise reduction tool. I tried Hush a little bit. I've tried every noise reduction plugin that's out there. I have tested at least. And the ones I stick with are Acon and Cedar. Hush is okay. Some people swear by it. I don't generally use any of the isotope ones unless I'm specifically requested to by somebody I'm pre-dubbing for. So yeah, those are the two. And then for when to use them, don't noise reduce during your dialogue edit. I will say that again. I'm looking directly at the camera. Do not noise reduce during your dialogue edit. Noise reduction is a dialogue mixing process. It is not a dialogue editing process. Do not use noise reduction during a dialogue edit. Make all the transitions smooth. Take out ticks, pops, bangs, clangs, farts, burps, all the stuff that shouldn't be in there, the little incidental noises. But your goal as a dialogue editor is to stitch together this jumbled up jigsaw, make the picture clear of what it's supposed to be, make it seamless so that the scene plays from front to back with no hiccups, no tone bumps at all. That way, during the mix, the mixer, even if the mixer is you, can decide exactly how much noise reduction to use. Don't even, oh, just a little, just a 3 dB, I'm just going to shave off. No, don't. Leave all that for the mix. Keep your tracks raw, clean them up with regards to transient noises, ticks and pops and stuff like that. Even the tonal noise, leave in there. If you take that stuff out while you're editing, your edit will suffer, the sound quality is going to suffer, and you're going to hamstring the mixer into a bunch of baked-in decisions that you've already made. So even if you are doing the dialogue edit and the mix yourself, save it for the mix. Make those decisions with all the other tracks in your timeline, playing at the right level, and you'll find that your dialogue sounds better and you're not processing as much. So that's my soapbox for now. Okay, and on to the next question. Muddy mixes. People have asked, you know, I'm adding sound effects in during the mix. I've got dialogue, I got music. Stuff is getting muddy, it's getting lost. How do I make this impactful? And the best way to deal with this problem is not an EQ. It is not EQing stuff. It's actually muting stuff. So you'll find that like the best sound designers and mixers in the business are all about reducing content. It's a reductive process. So if you have a busy sequence, like I'll go, we're not going to really listen to this, but I'll show you what I mean. We've got a chase here, vehicle chase, and the best way to make a sequence exciting and clear is to just focus on what you see for each shot. So if for this shot we have a shot of the tack, this is showing the engine RPM, all I want to hear is the engine going vroom. Save the tire screech, save the backgrounds, even the music. Cut the music out or dip it way down. I just want to hear the pitch going up on the engine. Okay, so then you go to maybe this shot. Okay, here I just want to hear the tire squeal, and you can mute or lower the engine. We go outside. Well, I'm going to want to hear footsteps on this shot, and maybe not on this shot. Maybe them just starting and going away. I want to hear the tires. I want to hear the grit of the tires on this shot. On this shot, I want to hear the helmet and the bike starting. Like, just go Mickey Mouse. Every shot has its own one sound that you focus on, and everything else can be completely muted or dropped way down because your ear can only track really like one or two things at a time. So that's the first thing I would do, is just go through and filter out all the extra sounds that don't need to be there. Either mute them or lower them with clip gain or volume or whatever, so that every shot in an action sequence has its own one sound, and you're just connecting the dots, A, B, C, D. You know, you're not throwing A, B, C, D on top of each other because you can't read that. So that is one thing. The next thing is doing fader rides where you highlight different things. So you can see here I've got VCAs, one for the truck and one for the bike. And, you know, we go from wanting to hear more of the truck to wanting to hear more of the bike. That type of trade-off. And the music, you know, the music can There's no music until I think it maybe comes in here or so. But don't be afraid to dip the music and then slowly fade it back in when things slow down. For action sequences, the composers want their music to be really loud, but the sound effects are what makes it visceral and exciting. So just lean on the sound effects, you know, one sound per shot. Really just match what's on screen and don't get too caught up in the layering of stuff. Like just get one good sound for each moment and you're gonna have a really good sequence when you're done. Okay, covered that. Bus processing and mix we talked a little bit about. I'm gonna take a little break to look through chat questions after that. So bus processing your mix, do not do it. People have asked, well, what if no, just don't put any compression on your bus. Your mix bus for your stereo mix or 5.1 mix, mixers don't do that. Our stems have to equal the mix in QC. So if you need to do bus processing, do it on your dialogue stem, do it on your music, do it on your sound effects. But the stems need to sum to equal the mix. Super important. So no, 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 and no, there's a space there. Okay, whatever. Yoko Ono. Don't do that. Okay, back to some questions here. Andrew says we're doing VFX on a short, trivially easy to paint out the booms. Yes, just paint them out. Get the boom in there. If you're, excuse me, I burped. If you're doing everything yourself, do you create different projects for your dialogue, sound effects, and music? Great question. Yes, I have a dialogue session, a sound effects session, and definitely, if I'm scoring too, a completely different music session. Dialogue extract. Yep. Oh yeah, Cedar is pretty expensive. Top 3 real-time noise reduction plugins. Cedar DNS 1 at the top. Cedar DNS 2 at the second position. And then, ooh, if we're going for sound quality, I actually like a multi-band compressor set to expand. It's super transparent. I've got videos on how to set that up. So a multi-band compressor set to a noise reduction preset is really useful. I actually have a preset on my website, so you can, if you want a shortcut for that, do it. But like setting up I think I've got it saved. Would it be Dynamics? Yeah, is it Pro MB? Or is it, oh, Pro Multiband Dynamics, I think I have one. Yeah, TB and R. So this is just the stock Avid Pro Multiband Dynamics. This on Dialogue sounds really nice. And you can change the threshold and the depth on each band. You can automate it. And it's free. Well, it's not free. It comes with your Pro Tools subscription. But this will get you very close to a Cedar sound. And there's no artifacts at all because you're just using it to expand different frequencies, which is exactly how Cedar works. So that's, yeah, good question. Okay, Paul. Yeah, Paul, if you want to join on the, I mean, we're out of time, dude. I'm sorry. Because I have a bunch of stuff I have to do today. So I was hoping somebody would join on Video Ninja. We didn't get anybody, so maybe next time. Paul, I will remember next time to have you on. Okay, couple more. That was for Paul Bohack, not Paul Cruz. A lot of guys like us do episodic TV and have a day turnaround time as dialogue, editor, music mixer, and sound effects mixer. Yep, that's pretty standard. Does that noise reduction apply on a dialogue edit? I would say even if you're doing a day turnaround, just save the noise reduction till you are done with your editing. All of it. Editor, editing, dialogue, music, and sound effects. Wait for the mix. Best way to tackle dialogue is off axis on a single mic. EQ, boost eye frequencies, cut the boxy mids that happen because of the interference design on the microphone. Yeah. Atmos. What's the skinny on keeping sound effects on the wall in the panner so they don't get phasing issues in the show at different seating positions? Well, hopefully the studio and wherever it plays back is calibrated and the monitors are delayed, so you can't really account for improperly set up rooms. Make sure your room is set up. Make sure it sounds good. And yeah, I like to use objects for special stuff like that. As a production sound mixer, what's some of the advice, gripe you want to have? As clean sound as possible. I would say the biggest things, max, for production sound is clothing noise on lavs. That's a huge issue from low budget to high budget. Work with wardrobe for fabric selection, for mic rigging. And then the other thing I can actually show you, because I have a lav mic on right now, is production mixers have a huge boner for tie mics, for miking in the tie knot. And it just sounds like this. It just sounds like you're miking their larynx instead of their voice. So try to get away from tie knot mics if you can. Move it, like I would prefer it on the collar or underneath the tie down here. Under the knot is good, like second button down or so. Do a hair mic if you have to, but this sound right here, you know, even with like a DPA or a Sanken, like it just doesn't sound good. You get a shadow from the chin, you get the, you know, like you're really miking their voice box instead of their actual voice. So just get away from that as a crutch. And then get the boom in there. That's the other thing. Get the boom in there. I've worked on so many shows where the boom is just like posted up at the sound cart instead of on set. George says, would you be up for having a lounge live channel in Discord? That's good. Yeah, I'll set that up. That's a great idea, George. I'll do that. I'll add that to my to-do list. Isotope RX plugins. Yep, I use them. What is your opinion about Logic Pro for post-production? It's used in some countries and some markets, but you know, Pro Tools is king for most professionals. Greetings from Bulgaria. Awesome. I've worked on so many films shot in Bulgaria. Jay says, wow, YouTube just played 2 commercials over my questions. I'm still figuring out the commercial stuff on the streams, so I can maybe look into doing breaks, like scheduled breaks. I think you can go back and watch it. Not live, though. I've mixed a few shows in Logic, and ultimately with all the import and sync, I just went back to Pro Tools. Yeah. Okay, so it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to blow through these last 3 questions that I wrote down, just because I want to give people who can't watch the stream, who've asked these, like, I want to give them attention to. Gear selection. I do not care what gear you buy. I'm not a gear junkie or salesman, I guess. I was gonna say a word that's not so kind, but I do not care what. I mean, I sort of care. Like everybody has preferences: Ford versus Chevy versus Dodge. But what monitors you pick and what control surface and headphones, like all that stuff, it really doesn't matter. Even Mac and PC, it doesn't matter. Like just use what suits you, what suits your budget, suits your market. And the most important thing is learning your gear. You know, not always pining for new gear, having gear acquisition syndrome gas, like, ooh, they got a new surface. Ooh, there's a new plugin I need. No, just use what you have, get really good at using it, and that way your skills are not dependent on the gear. Your skills are dependent on you, and you're not a slave to the technology. The technology works for you instead of you working for the technology. So, because if you work for the technology, you are going to be replaced because a computer can do your job. If you use the technology as a tool and you know how to use the tool to do creative stuff that maybe can't be done by an AI or a computer, then you're going to have a much longer career than somebody who just knows how to run a bunch of stuff through plugins. So, and same with monitors. Like I use JBLs, but Kali, even PreSonus, or what are the yellow KRKs, like whatever you got, just use what you've got. And then if you can afford to upgrade, then do it. It's important to spend time though. Time is more important than gear. Time doing sound treatment, time tuning your room, time learning your monitors, time seeing how your mixes translate to different venues, like all that is super important. Okay, where to find work, moving for work. LA and New York are traditionally in the US where post-work happens. In like Australia, you're going to be looking at probably Sydney. I know in Toronto, there's post-production. There's a little bit in Vancouver, probably Shanghai. I mean, Lagos, Nigeria, there's post-production going on. Like, there's going to be hubs in cities where if you want to work professionally, you just need to move there and at least start your career. That's what I did. I moved to LA for 7 years, started my career, got the experience, got the connections, got the heck out when I could, and I work remotely now. So the nice thing about working remotely is this slowdown, this 2+ year slowdown, I can shrink my spending very quickly. My house is not expensive. I can like cut way down on my expenses to ride it out. If you're in LA or New York, you can't really do that. You're going to be spending $3 grand a month to rent a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartment. So that's the downside of moving there, is right now it's really slow, and so expenses are still high, but the pay is not high because there's not enough work, so you're spending more than you're making, and that's a dangerous situation to be in. Remotely, you know, online, there's Upwork, there's Fiverr. I haven't used those for a long time, but when stuff got slow, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I did. I made about 12 grand on Upwork 1 year, so which is not much, but it was like surprising that I was able to do that. So you can, but generally most of your work is going to come from word of mouth, people you've worked with before, and recommendations where they've talked to their friends about you. So where to find work, you got to go to a big city, or you have to find your local people who are doing stuff. And then physically be there, connect with them, you know, and find work. Another question, control surfaces. I switched from a fader port to an Avid S1 just because I had, at the end of last year, I needed to invest some money in some new gear, so that I upgraded that, but I missed the 16 faders. Like, the control surface doesn't matter. The important thing is that you have something, if you're mixing, to get your fingers on, because mouse mixing is not super fun. So that is really important too. I think that's the end of the questions I wanted to cover. So let's just go back to the chat. This will be my last run because I'm over and I gotta move on to other stuff. Any thoughts on Nuendo? It's basically a hyped up version of Cubase. It seems pretty popular in like Eastern Europe and former Soviet countries for doing post-production. I think Foley first and a couple other Foley studios use it. So it seems fine, but just know if you're working with people using Pro Tools, you're going to be doing AAFs and OMFs. Okay, are headphones really a good way to get started on an Atmos mix? I don't think so. I would do it with speakers. Post in Las Cruces, tons of filming going on in New Mexico. There's not as much going on in New Mexico right now as like 2 or 3 years ago, but yeah, Albuquerque is a big hub. I don't know of much filming going on in Las Cruces, and most of the shows that film in Albuquerque end up posting elsewhere. They post in LA, usually LA, but sometimes New York. And actually post-production in LA is down. It's down across the North American continent right now, but I also know some of that stuff is fleeing to like Toronto and BC because it's cheaper up there. So yeah, Netflix is based in New Mexico. If they have post-production there, I would maybe be willing to move back to New Mexico. But yeah, I spent enough time there to also know some of the downsides of the Land of Enchantment. So Jay, you will find those out the more time you spend there. Okay, so I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching my stream and checking out my videos and leaving good comments. And it's just been really nice having this YouTube channel to kind of focus in on while the industry's been a little bit slowed down. And I'm going to keep doing videos and live streams, even, you know, as I'm working on different things. So I just wanted to thank you guys. I know it's April Fool's and I should probably do a prank, but instead of that, I will just say thank you. A big thank you to all the channel members. Again, congrats to Sean C. for being the member of the week. If you're interested in joining as a member, just click join on the YouTube thing and you'll get access to the Discord and some other stuff. So yeah, thank you guys. And if you have ideas for next week's topic on the stream, drop a comment either on any video or this stream or this video or in Discord, and I try to tailor my streams and videos to what you guys are asking for. So I'm going to continue my DaVinci Resolve tutorial series. That'll be done in a couple weeks, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do after that. So thanks again. I will see you guys next